let me get started with today's session. A couple weeks ago, Barbara Hammond and I were having a breakfast meeting with Buzz Wurzler. I think many of you probably know Buzz, who's a long-time Johns Island member. And we were talking to him about the Learning Alliance. And he interrupted our talk and said, "Hey, Ray and Barbara, you know what I tell people what the Learning Alliance is?" I said, "No." And he said, "The Learning Alliance is saving 9-year-old lives." That's what the Learning Alliance does. It saves 9-year-old lives.
Important for us to engage.
And I said, "Holy mackerel, is that a great elevator speech?" That is pretty succinct, because when you really think about it, as Buzz said, that's what you're doing. You're saving 9-year-olds' lives. You're giving them a shot at being healthy, prosperous, and productive lives, versus when you can't read, you only have a 1 in 7 chance of ever catching up, which leads to depression, mental health issues, social issues, etc. You know, when you really take a look at the statistics, that if you can't read by the end of the 3rd grade, or 9 years old, you only have a 1 in 7 chance of ever catching up. That's staggering that we allow so many young people to fail so early in their lives. And we know that when kids can't read proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade, they're 4 times as more likely to drop out of school. 75% of all the people on welfare can't read proficiently. 90% of the people in prison can't read proficiently. And unwed mothers, 85% of them can't read proficiently. So all these social problems have a real direct link to reading by the end of the 9th grade. So we really are trying to save young people's lives, 9-year-old lives. And so what I'd like to do now is start up the Mark and Ray show. Because I'm sure many of you want to know, how are we doing as far as saving 9-year-old lives? And so with that, let me bring Dr. Rendell up. And as he's coming up to the stage here, let me just give you the headline. For the first time in a long, long while, we only have A, B, and C rated schools. No F rated school in the elementary school system. So that's a deal.
Thank you, Ray. You're right. Last year was a banner year for us in student performance. All of our elementary schools are either A's, B's, and C's. It's the first time in many, many years we've been able to say that. In fact, as a district, we did very well. Our middle schools and high schools, all but one, are either A's, B's, and C's. As a district, we improved our overall percent proficient in everything, and we moved up to, as a district, to a grade of B+, only 4 points from an A. So overall, last year was a great year for us in student performance, and all of that really is a benefit to the community working together with our schools and the support that you all have provided.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that Mark hasn't mentioned is that the Indian River School District has one of the highest poverty rates of any school district out of the 67 in Florida. It's one of the highest poverty rates of all the school districts. And so with that, one of the things that the Learning Alliance has been doing in conjunction with the district is doing extended learning after school and over the summer with the academies, and also Literacy on the Goon and the Literacy in Motion. So has the extended learning helped at all, Mark?
Absolutely. The after-school academies and the summer programs have proven to be effective over time, and last year they were effective once again. The students who participated in those programs saw a 57% increase in proficiency versus the students who did not, who only saw a 10% increase in proficiency. So again, those extended learning opportunities provided by the Learning Alliance have paid big dividends with our students, especially our most struggling readers.
Yeah, and that's a key point. It's the most struggling students that are in those academies, so that it is making a big, big difference for those kids. I think the other thing is pretty interesting is last year, the Learning Alliance went to Mark and the principals and his staff and said, what can we do to dramatically accelerate the 3rd grade reading scores? Because that's what the state of Florida really focuses on, and that's how the district gets measured upon. What can we do to dramatically accelerate those scores? So what Mark and his principals came back and said, Ray, what you guys could do is help fund what we call 3rd grade interventionists. Is put a teacher in for the 3rd grade students who are struggling and have them intervene with these struggling students to try to raise their scores up. And so we are just in this program, we started when the school started up in August, We're just getting our initial results on that. And so with that, Mark, why don't you take us through where that is?
Thank you. Yes. So most of you are familiar with the term literacy coach. All of our elementary schools have a literacy coach. It's a former classroom teacher who works with all the teachers in that school on literacy instruction. Sometimes they work with struggling readers one-on-one or in small groups. But that's one literacy coach for the entire elementary school. So that one literacy coach might be working with 40 plus teachers and over 500 students. What we saw in a couple of our elementary schools over the years is if the principal assigns that literacy coach to 1 or 2 grade levels, and that literacy coach works only with those 4, 5, 6, or even 8 teachers, and that 100 or so students, that we have a huge payoff in their effectiveness, how they work with those smaller groups, a lesser number of teachers to work with and students to concentrate on. So we asked the Learning Alliance to help us, and the Learning Alliance was able to fund 5 of those specialized, we call them interventionists, and they focus just on 3rd grade, and they're working with 3rd grade teachers and 3rd grade students, and the results so far are rather impressive. We give a diagnostic reading assessment at the beginning of the year, and then we give another reading assessment, it's called a predictive assessment, in the middle part of the year. And our scores from the beginning of the year, district-wide, our score was 40% proficient at the beginning of the year, has jumped to 62% proficient at the mid-year. So a 22% jump at the mid-year, district-wide. But in the 5 schools where you have funded 3rd grade interventionists, the results are even more compelling. Madeline, could you? So at Fellsmere Elementary, the percent proficient jumped from 27% at the beginning of the year to 56% at the mid-year predictive. At Glendale Elementary, from 34% to 55%. At Indian River Academy, from 44% to 79%. At Pelican Island Elementary, from 44% to 63%. And at Sebastian Elementary, from 37% to 57%. These are incredible results. Now, these are predictive results with our diagnostic assessment. We don't know for sure if they will translate to the same scores on the state assessment. Last year, overall, our district assessment was right on. Our predictive assessment hit the same mark as the state assessment last year. I can't guarantee these results, but they are extremely encouraging. Those are incredible gains at all of those schools. These are 5 Title I schools. They're schools where the majority of the students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And these are incredible results. So district-wide, a 22% increase. At these schools, 28%. And so we think that's a direct reflection of the work of the 3rd grade interventionists, which you guys are paying for. So thank you very much.
I think it's also important to take a note. I think this is a real positive deal. I think that maybe just pointing out 2 schools that Mark mentioned. Fellsmere Elementary, and that's where a lot of the police departments from here today. Fellsmere Elementary is 80% Hispanic, right? And where English is a second language, 95% poverty, I believe. So it's a very, very poor and English as a second language school. Indian River Academy, for those of you who may have forgotten, 2 years ago was an F-rated school. 2 years ago was an F-rated school. They will hit, if this is right, they'll hit 80% proficiency by the end of the 3rd grade. That is outstanding for a F-rated school 2 years ago. So I think we're getting all this stuff, it's coming together, it's rolling forward, thanks to a lot of your help. So, thanks, Mark. The other thing I'd like to do is, people say, well, Ray, if all this stuff's working, why doesn't the school district pay for all this stuff? Why are you asking all these wonderful people in Johns Island and the community and all these workers doing this? And so what we decided to do today was to change the subject a little and bring Tiffany Justice, who's on the school board, who represents this district for the school board, to talk to you about why philanthropy is so important and what's going on with the school budgets and why we need your help. So Tiffany, come on in.
Good morning. Good morning. I have some notes this morning, so I'm going to stand here if that's okay. And I thought this subject can be a little dry, so I thought if I move around a little bit and talk, we can make it a little bit more interesting. So again, my name is Tiffany Justice. I'm a school board member here in Indian River County. I grew up here in Indian River County, and I've been married for about 14 years to my husband, Mark. We have 4 children that attend public schools here. Our daughter Ava is a 7th grader at Gifford Middle School, and our 3 boys attend Beachland Elementary. They are in 4th grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. So this morning was an interesting morning for me. I negotiated with my 6-year-old about why he couldn't wear shorts to school. We have a lot of Florida kids in our house, so now I get to switch hats and be a school board member and talk to you a little bit. I want to thank you, first of all, for your continued support of the students of Indian River County. We are so grateful for your commitment to our students and their success in life. I see some friendly faces in the crowd. I see some new faces. Please take a moment at the end of this to introduce yourselves. I'd love to meet everyone that's been so supportive of our schools. You know, many of our students come to school without the tools in their toolbox necessary to be successful every day in the classroom. And sometimes people ask me, will we ever stop receiving students who need extra support? And the answer to that is really no. I don't really foresee a time where we will ever stop receiving students into our schools that don't need some extra help. Sometimes people ask me how much money does each student get for his or her education, and why the state funding isn't enough to cover what the required services are. And the answers to those questions take a little bit more time. So Ray and Barbara have asked me to come today and talk to you a little bit about the state funding formula. And what I'd like to say first is that I'm not here to criticize the legislature or the governor about the amount of funding that we receive. Those leaders are elected by voters, and they're elected because of the positions they took during elections. So, you know, chief among the directives they've received from voters is to reduce government and to reduce taxes. So the budgets that we receive from the state reflect those directives. You know, despite the priority afforded to education by the legislature, the current district operating budget provides fewer dollars today to pay ongoing operating budget expenses than it provided 10 years ago. After paying for new costs required by the legislature, the current district operating budget, the funds we use to pay for programs and educational services, includes almost $1 million less in the Florida Education Finance Program, in Florida Education Finance Program revenue than it did in May fiscal year 2007-2008. Specific parts of our budget prescribed by the legislature show the continued impacts of the recession on our funding. The Safe Schools allocation is $80,000 less than it was 10 years ago. This fund pays for school safety, and the cost of our school resource officers do not cost less. The supplemental academic instructional allocation is $335,000 less than it was 10 years ago. This fund is to provide extra help to some of our students who are not performing well. The exceptional student allocation, student education allocation, is $1.9 million less than it was 10 years ago. This fund is reserved to help students with educational handicaps, and the cost of servicing these students has not gone down. The transportation allocation we receive each year is $290,000 less than it was 10 years ago, and the cost of transporting our students has not decreased. The instructional materials allocation is $440,000 less than it was 10 years ago, and the cost of instructional materials has increased by almost 40%. The teacher supply allocation, finally, is $40,000 less than it was 10 years ago, and school supplies don't cost any less. The fiscal position of the district is clear. The district has had to permanently reduce operating costs and further reduce spending to match any other cost increases incurred in the past 10 years. The district also has capital outlay expenses that we are responsible for. Capital outlay expenses pay for things like renovations or major repairs to educational facilities, school bus fleet replacement, and major technology purchases. The recession drastically reduced the school taxable value in the district, and the legislature reduced the authorized millage rate for capital outlay from 2.0 mils to 1.5. I don't have enough time to really delve into this area, but what I can assure you is nothing that we use to pay for capital outlay revenue has gone down 32.6% in the past 10 years, or $12.3 million less funding. It might help if I try to explain how the state funding formula works. The formula funds each student individually based on the specific characteristics of a student. We often refer to the amount of the average dollars per student in the state funding formula. In the most recent calculation of the Indian River County the amount of dollars each Indian River County student receives, the average is $7,380.75. That is not the amount of revenue that each student receives, and it is not the amount of revenue to which each student is entitled. An unrelated example might help. If we have two people standing in front of us, one woman who weighs 120 pounds and one man who weighs 260 pounds, their average weight is 190 pounds. That does not mean that the man and the woman each weigh 190 pounds. The same is true for the way our students generate funding in the state formula. My fourth grader, Oliver, has no handicapping conditions and needs no special accommodations. He generates about $5,600 in the state funding formula. We have students with severe handicaps that may require many expensive services. One such student may generate about $26,000 in the state funding formula. They have an average funding of about $15,800, but that amount bears no relationship to what either student generates or what the services for each student costs. We have a few severely handicapped students in our district whose services may cost thousands more dollars than the funding provided by the state for those required services. We do get some operating funding from the federal government. As Ray and Mark talked about, Title I funds are targeted to schools where we have the majority of students living in poverty. The same school might also rank amongst the lowest 300 schools and might receive some additional money for and required an extra hour of reading for those students. My son attends a school in which only about half of the students are living in poverty, and perhaps a quarter of those students are in the lowest 25% in reading proficiency. Because of how the federal and state funds are allocated, none of the students at my child's school receive this extra state and federal support, even though as many as half of the students may require it. Sometimes people ask me, how much does a great K-12 education cost? For an answer to that, I sometimes look to the marketplace to see what the most discerning customers of K-12 education are willing to pay. St. Edward's School is an excellent school, private school in our community. The school serves students selected through a competitive application process based on their qualifications to succeed. The school does not provide services to exceptionally handicapped students who need extra support. St. Edward's School charges about $20,000 for kindergarten, about $21,000 in tuition for grades 1 through 5, about $25,000 for grades 6 through 8, and about $27,000 in grades 9 through 12. In addition, the school indicates that students may have to pay somewhere between $200 to $1,700 for computer devices and about $100 to $600 a year for books. So it's easy to see that the real cost of a high-quality K-12 education averages about $25,000 per student, and that is about servicing the most expensive to serve students in our community. Most St. Edward students come to school with a full stomach, good shoes on their feet, and the tools in their toolbox to help them in their studies. It is noted that the tuition must cover all costs of the school, including construction and maintenance costs. The revenue I've been discussing in these points is the district's state and local operating revenues. To have a fairer comparison with the district, I can report that the total district expenditures for fiscal year 2016-2017, including special revenue, which includes federal funds, debt service, and capital outlay revenue, totals an average of about $11,533 per student, less than half of the cost of a private school education. Well, I know that was a lot of information to share in a very short period of time, and my husband and a few close friends have told me that I speak very quickly, especially when I'm a little nervous. So I've spent the better part of the past 3 years trying to understand how the state funds our schools so that I can make the best choices and decisions with the funding that we do receive. If you have any questions, I suggest that you ask me or ask Dr. Rendell. We will try to answer them as best as we can, or we will connect you with the people with the best information for you. And finally, and most importantly, I'd like to thank you again for your support of our students. Unfortunately, there are many children who come to our schools every day that face challenges that some of us can't even imagine. Fortunately for them, you have provided, and I hope you will continue to provide, support and opportunities that make a difference in these children's lives forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I think it's important to just stop for a moment. Hopefully that was a quick introduction to why everybody in this room is so important and what's going on to try to help every child who goes to school in this county. You are making a difference. Without your philanthropy, we would have many, many kids falling through the cracks. You can see the movement in the scores, you can see the movement happening, but what's really important is that we recognize that the schools can't do it alone. We recognize that many things go on outside the school walls. We know that children from birth to 5 years old is very, very important. We know that parental involvement is very important. All those things occur outside the school wall. And what we've been fortunate to do over the last 5 years is put together the Moonshot Coalition Action Network, where we brought nearly 40 to 50 nonprofits together that try to focus on all these areas that are going on outside the school wall to try to make a difference so when these kids come and show up at kindergarten, that they're ready for kindergarten. Right now, and Mark's grinding the numbers, right now we have somewhere between 1 to 2 years that these kids are coming in behind school. So you can imagine the poor the kindergarten teacher trying to not only instruct 1 year's of growth, but have to make up 1 to 2 years of growth of these kids coming in behind. These are daunting challenges, and we'll be sharing at our March 1st meeting some of the plans that we're going to try to do to address this. But thanks to the Moonshot Coalition, we're making progress on a lot of these particular areas to get these kids ready for kindergarten. So with that, let me turn it over to Barbara.
Great, thank you, Ray. Is this on? No.
Need help turning on the mics.
Marie, maybe you can turn this on. I'll stand up here. I'm Barbara Hammond. I'm co-founder of the Learning Alliance, and really what I want to sit here and talk with Judi Miller about is turning the Moonshot Quest into a reality. What does it take to get 90% of our kids ready for kindergarten, reading on grade level by 3rd grade, in such a way that we create literate, creative, compassionate citizens who improve our world? And the Learning Alliance really is the backbone of this Moonshot Quest, really working to cultivate a new class of community leaders, educators, and students. Today you're going to hear from these incredible community leaders that have been working for 5 years together every month and trying to create an unstoppable team to say, what does it take to make this happen? If you turn to the next slide, Madeline. This is just a collage of pictures of some of the people on the journey. Really, this is about teamwork, right? I'm a twin. I was born with a teammate into this world. I'm an athlete. I was very involved with teams my whole life. And I recently read a book by Ken Wilber who said, it was called A Brief History of Everything. And he said, the way the world has evolved forward over history, from a quark to an atom, from an atom to a molecule, from molecules to living organisms, to families, to communities, and to global communities, are two things. I was like, tell me, what are the two things? One is the ability of the individual to have self-sufficiency, right? We call the word agency these days. The ability to thrive in and of yourself, to build the skills, to do what's necessary. And the other one is to connect to other people around you. And if I really think about, working as a team with my sister, or working on my teams, or what we're doing at Moonshot Community Action Network, it's about building the agency of every person in it, such that they meet their organizational mission and align behind our children in this community, and that we connect, because connected as a network, we are much, much more powerful. We have more powerful voices, we have more powerful impact. So the Moonshot Community Action Network, if you just turn to the next slide, is literally just, we do professional development in the room once a month, we share stories, and we learn. And really what we are doing is creating a new class of community leaders who isn't siloed, but are working together collectively to transform what the future looks like. And I'm so honored today to have you hear stories from what's going on across a wide berth of these Moonshot community leaders. And my board kept saying, well, Barbara, what's the data? What's the data that says, the Moonshot Community Action Network is meaningful? And so what I did is I said, Judi Miller, who's been on this journey for a long time, she epitomizes this new caliber of community leader. She is a growth mindset, she's about learning, she collaborates with everybody, she puts her ego aside, and she has transformed her organization to align behind this goal and create more impact for our kids. So I'd like to introduce Judi. We shared a quote at our board because we couldn't have her live, but today we've got her live, so she's going to share her experience with you.
So in 2011, before Moonshot was a reality, I can remember back where there were just a massive number of nonprofits here in Indian River County, and we were all working pretty independently and, as Barbara said, acting as silos. We all had our individual goals and outcomes and objectives, but there was nothing that really brought us together to look at what the community needed as a whole. And then we had Moonshot. And what an amazing thing it was, because for the first time, we were actually able to coalesce around one single goal. And that goal being the goal Ray talked about, the third grade reading performance. So the impact on Moonshot has been amazing for Big Brothers Big Sisters, but beyond that, oh my goodness, for our group of nonprofits, it's taken us from partners to collaborators, and I hope in the future to collective impact. I'm so incredibly thankful for the Learning Alliance, because they have energy and passion and skill like nobody I've ever seen before to put together to problems. And somehow together they've been able to create a depth and a quality of leadership that is just beyond compare from what I've seen in Indian River County. I don't want to imply that this is easy work. It's been a long time coming, but with the hard work, it's something I can honestly say that I stand behind 100%. I think about why this work inspires me so much, and I truly believe it's because in the past we've all tried to work independently. And you can't learn and grow independently like you can with Moonshot and this group. So thank you to TLA and to everyone else who brought this together, and to Johns Island for supporting all the MCAN efforts, because without you, we would not be where we are.
You hear a lot about social emotional intelligence, and Judi is filled with it. She always puts the community first, and just such a joy. So some other very vibrant community leaders. Let me introduce the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, which is another backbone organization which evolved from MCAN to focus on 0 to 5. So education doesn't start at birth. Doesn't start at 5 when the schools get them. It starts at birth. And the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, Meredith, is going to lead several stories coming out that have been born out of this work.
Thank you, Barbara. So like Barbara said, we're up here to talk about the 0 to 5 space. Our understanding of early childhood development is constantly evolving. As most recently as the 60s and 70s, we thought that trying to teach a 3-year-old was impossible because we thought that their brain couldn't handle this stimulation. So obviously today we know a very different story. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 2-year-olds, their brain is very complex, and by 3 years old, 80% of their neurons have already developed. We also know that most importantly, that a child's ability to capitalize on those early years is directly related to the environment that they're brought up in. The more we learn about early childhood development, we are always constantly asking what works best. We're trying to define the features of what an excellent early childhood program is. There is no empirically based definition of high quality, but yet we are all guilty of using that definition. So we're here to kind of talk about what that means in the 0 to 5 space. We're going to talk with some of our partners. Definitely not most importantly, she is very important. But first I would like to introduce Dr. NIVEA Torres, the new Executive Director of the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative.
morning, Meredith, and good morning, everyone.
Oh, sorry, we're supposed to be doing that. I'm like Oprah. All right, so NIVEA, tell us a little bit about yourself, what brought you here to Indian River County, and a little bit about where you came from.
So I've been in education for 24 years, and it's been a thrilling journey. Got into education by accident. I think many of us start a bachelor's degree and then end up doing something else. In actuality, I have 24 years as being an educator and a children's advocate in a variety of roles. High school English teacher, elementary school principal, and superintendent of schools. And there are two reasons why I was attracted to Indian River County. And the first one is, having worked with children and families from kindergarten up until higher education, I realized that really it starts in pregnancy and it starts at birth. And neuroscience research tells us that the first 1,000 days from pregnancy until a child's second birthday are the most important in terms of cognitive development. And that has always intrigued me. So I decided to go back to the beginning and focus really on putting all of my efforts and energy in helping children and families early on, not waiting. And the second thing, and Barbara and Judy spoke about it, but in my career I have never seen such a coordinated community effort and so much momentum like you have here in Indian River County with the MCAN and the Moonshot moment. To see a community come together and coalesce around a common goal, 90% literacy at third grade level, is really unique, and again, something that I have never experienced. So I was really attracted to that, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Thank you. We are all so happy that NIVEA has joined us. It's been a short time. She actually started the week of the hurricane. So she has already proven to be such a star in our constellation of Moonshot Network. So we are so happy she's here. One of the things that I know you first set out to do with Kindergarten Readiness is define some of the roles for the collaborative. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that's going on there?
So working very closely with our board of directors of the Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative, the board has identified 3 critical roles in the community, and I think this is important for everybody to understand as we better get a sense and scope of what a collaborative is, particularly here in Indian River County. So up on the screen you'll see 3 roles, and don't worry about the terms, I'll walk you through them. But the first one is clearinghouse. So we like to see ourselves really as an experimental lab within Indian River County. And if we could look at the next slide, Madeline, I'll give you a specific example. So this past November, we brought together a group of community leaders, educators, and really having the opportunity to talk about issues that impact the early childhood sector. So as a clearinghouse, we really want to provide the forum to have those conversations, but not only conversations, to really identify solutions. And in identifying solutions, we're really building the leadership capacity of this group and of many other leaders, because we know that in building leadership capacity, we are creating impact. The next role, if we go to the next slide, is really a connector. So as a collaborative, we aim to connect children and families to key services in the community. And one of our signature events is the Kindergarten Roundup. Next Saturday, February 24th, anyone in Indian River County who has a child who is ready to be registered for BPK or kindergarten has the opportunity to access all of these services for free. So this is really a signature event where we not only connect families to services, but we also connect partner agencies, and that's really huge in our early childhood sector. And I also want to talk about the next slide, a particular example where we connect with the community. This was this past Monday where some of us got some really good exercise at the Martin Luther King Parade in Gifford, and we had the opportunity to connect with the community and really share an awareness about reading early on and distribute books. Through our partnership with the Housing Authority in Gifford and the support of our board of directors, we now have an office in Victory Park Housing Authority, and we will be able to connect with those families. That is huge. Really give them the opportunity to get a better awareness about developmental milestones and how they can help the children. And the last role is advocacy. Our board of directors is very involved in developing a message strategy and creating new funding streams that impact the early childhood sector.
Sounds like you've been very busy. Some of you may know that lady up there. No, not me. So there was a larger community movement earlier this year, back in March, in our role as advocates. Some of you may have been there, read about it, heard about it. We advocated our county commission to increase the amount of funding the children's services millage, to increase it to 1.25 over the next 3 years, which resulted in $1.6 million invested and leveraged opportunities for programs servicing children just this year. But by the 2019-2020 fiscal year, our county will be investing $1.9 million for children. And that was a direct result of us going to our county commissioners and using our voice to have that increase. So thank you very, very much. Also on a state level, this legislative session, there were also many opportunities for us to be advocates for children and speak up for kids who can't. Representative Erin Grahl, who has graced this stage many times, is very busy up in Tallahassee, especially this week. She is sponsoring 2 bills directly related to accountability in early childhood, supporting her and educating our legislators on the importance of investing early and extending learning supports for school-age children is a smart way to improve our economy. And so we're really trying to give her our support this year as well. So you'll be hearing more about that. So moving on, we know that a teacher can change a child's life, but training can change a teacher's life and also transform a classroom. Parents are entrusting child care workers with their children for at least 40 hours a week in some cases, unfortunately, sometimes more. Ensuring these providers are equipped with the skills necessary to promote skill building in the children in their care is essential for the child's success. Inspiring teachers and respecting them as early childhood professionals and not babysitters is one of the first steps. You may have seen this article. It was actually the cover of the New York Times Magazine just last week. It's a wonderful article. If you can go out and read it, it's also perfectly timely. Preschool classrooms are really, truly crackling with the kind of raw power that can change the course of a life. The power that likely resides in the ability of teachers to connect with those students. But if teachers are crucial to high-quality preschool, they are also the most neglected component. An early investment in early childhood education, as investment in early childhood education soars, teachers continue to earn as little as $28,000. So here to talk about some coaching is one of the most inspiring educators in Indian River County, Susan Roberts from Childcare Resources. She's working with early childhood educators to coach them up and increase their skills.
Hello, everyone. Well, I just heard the other day somebody said that I failed at retirement. And I took that the wrong way to begin with because I don't like the word fail. But I've just changed the concept of retirement for myself. And I did work at the school with the school district for about 28 years, retired in 2012. Since then, I was involved with the Learning Alliance and did parenting classes and worked particularly with parents of infants through 4-year-olds. Getting those children ready for school, because as a former kindergarten teacher and elementary principal, I know that there are so many children that come in that just aren't ready. And not that they don't have the potential, but that they haven't had the experiences of a good early childhood education. Since I've been working with Childcare Resources since September, I'm an early educator coach. And I've had the privilege of going out into the community to various daycare centers and family care centers. And I've been trying to get into places that really have been neglected. The teachers and directors might not come to in-services that are offered, or they're kind of flying under the radar. And I've been really pleased to get into some centers, some small schools within our community, in the Oslo area, in Gifford, in Fellsmere, off of 6th Avenue, to make some connections with people. And it's a very slow process because Barbara mentioned the word connections and relationships, and it's so important to develop that when we're going into new areas at sites. One site that I've been going to is actually a family daycare center in Gifford. This is in someone's home, and I was able to visit, and this was on Monday when I was there. We were doing a little activity on numbers. I was able to get into this home and start working with the teacher who is really an owner and not a teacher, and the children. She is a wonderful lady. She has such a wonderful heart for the children and provides a really nice environment, very clean. The children are all well cared for. But she doesn't have any education experience with children. So I'm able to go in and do some modeling for her. She was telling me, oh, these children can all count, and she has the children usually sitting when I get there, and they can count. They can count very well. They can count up to 10, and when they were doing that, I noticed that they really didn't know what that meant. When we were counting objects, they would count and then keep on going with the numbers. At my table, I had brought one of the little caps that I use in the far picture. I actually had I saved Tropicana orange juice caps, and I wrote a number on the top and then dots on the bottom. And I was having the children put down that number of blocks. And she said, no, the director said, no, this little guy, he can count. And I had a circle with 3 dots on it. And he starts counting. Perfect one-to-one correspondence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He counted perfectly all the way to 11, but there are only 3 dots. And it was a way for that person who works with these children every day to see there's something else that I need to be doing with these kids. It's not just the rote counting. She wants to learn so much. She has asked me to come to her home, and I go there every week. And Monday she said, I've got a friend down the street, and she watches little ones too. She would really like to know some of these things. So what I am learning through being a member of FACT, through working with the Learning Alliance, with having connections through the school district, through working with the Buggy Bunch, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, all of these community events that I go to as somebody with boots on the ground, I learn from. And I really appreciate your support for all the programs that helped to get into the community and make improvements for the very youngest children. Thank you.
Thank you. So we know that teachers are crucial to a child's success, but a parent is a child's first teacher. So next up, we have the wonderful Andrea Berry to talk from the Healthy Start Coalition to talk about how she's been working with parents to unlock their potential.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. And I'm going to keep this quick because I see a little roundup going on. But Healthy Start is so busy all the time because we touch 95% of the babies that are born in this county, 95%. So we give mommies, I always say that parenting is the greatest equalizer. No matter how powerful you are, parenting is hard, and it can make you feel very small very quickly. So Healthy Start wants to be the evidence-based person that you go to. And no matter if you just need a little bit of help because you're scared about what's going to happen during labor and delivery, all the way to if you're in an abusive relationship and you need those tools to make sure that that baby is safe. We want to be that person for all mommies, and that's what we do. So we connect, we give them the tools in their toolbox. We have Parents as Teachers, which is a great program that helps prepare parents to be their child's first teacher, and work closely with everyone, Kindergarten Readiness, Moonshot, everyone, so that we can help make that happen for our community.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Next up is Fellsmere. So Fellsmere community action team would come up here. We've got some great stories. This is a community that has organized better than any and has attracted a lot of Moonshot resources recently because Chief TOUCHBERRY and the FACT team have adopted Moonshot as one of their initiatives.
So I feel like I am such a privilege this morning to be able to share and ask the Fellsmere community and our team here just to give you a little snapshot of what's happening. I feel like this is we have a lot of heroes in the room today. We've got, Ross and Eric from the Sheriff's Department, so I always view our law enforcement as heroes, and Chief TOUCHBERRY is not only one of our law enforcement heroes, but he's also a Moonshot hero. Chief has been really active. We've mentioned MCAN, and I did want to explain too, MCAN stands for Moonshot Community Action Network. So the Chief has been one of our MCAN leaders and has really helped to bring all the Moonshot work into Fellsmere. And so I'm just going to turn this over to Chief for a minute, and he can also tell you guys where Fellsmere is, which you see on the map. And in case you haven't been, and Donna Ramsnyder is here too. Thank you, Donna, for coming down from Fellsmere and is very involved with. Today is the beginning of the Fellsmere Frog Leg Festival, so that's been 26 years now. So if you are looking for something different to do, there's the map.
Actually 27 years, but who's counting? And thank you, Marie. And it's not hard to see Fellsmere up there because in actuality we are 58 square miles in size. We have 10 miles of interstate that is within our corporate city limits. So we're a pretty large community, but we're not as populated as some. And as this slide indicates, we're about 5,500 in population. And you can see about 1/3 of our folks are under the age of 18. So we have a lot of children. We have a lot of young families with the average median age being about 28. And but the average median household income is about $20,000 a year less than the state average, which is about $48,000. So being 28 in the city. So we are a resource-challenged community. As you can see, we have a lot of folks that live in poverty. And in addition to that, about 50% of our residents claim to have a formal education, and that level is high school diploma. The other 50% claim to have no formal education. So literacy is a chief issue among all community leaders in Fellsmere, and the police department has certainly taken an active interest in that. So if we could advance to the next slide. One of the ways that the Fellsmere Police Department wanted to set about addressing literacy and other issues in our community, specifically poverty, was to be a co-founding member of the Fellsmere Action Community Team. And this is similar to MCAN in that it is a coalition approach to addressing our common core issues. And I'd like to point out the logo because it's unique in what it means to us. From a criminal justice standpoint, we know that there are institutions in our society that are responsible for growing, molding, and shaping our children. The first and foremost being the family. It's the most important institution in our society, as we know. So each ray up there in the sun represents an institution that is represented in fact, family, church, school, youth organization, and government, chief among that being criminal justice. We also know that the criminal justice system is the institution of last resort. We're the last people that you want to have dealing with raising children. It's the most damaging to their future, and so we would rather prevent and work with families and the other institutions to keep them from coming into contact with us in let's just say, unhealthy ways. So, and the horizon line represents the nonprofits that are part of FACT and support us. So we've got maybe about 50 members in our organization, and we work together very well. So if we could advance to the next slide. Talk a little bit about what exactly is our community, Moonshot community. Not just FACT, but the Fellsmere Exchange Club plays an integral role in what we do in Fellsmere. They're completely on board with poverty and literacy issues in our community. And so we've partnered with a number of different events, and what you see here is a book drive that we've done. And of course we have these book boxes that were down that bottom corner throughout the city where children can take free books or leave books, and they're for all ages, not just children. By the time we have them all, we have about 2 more to plant. We'll have 5 book boxes scattered throughout our city and accessible to anybody. And that's one way we contribute. The Fellsmere Police Department, like I said, is a member of FACT, and our philosophy has always been it takes a community. in our case, to police, to protect the community, but it takes a community to do all of those things that we do together to improve our quality of life. And so we spend time, with literacy issues and working with FACT and working with the Moonshot moment. If we can go to the next slide, just some examples. This was a bike rodeo that we did recently, and working with the kids, and all our members participate. We will be participating next week in Literacy Week as well, and reading to children. So it's a great opportunity for us to work together and come together as a community, but to in the benefits that we receive as a result of being law enforcement in our community, the public trust is increased, and we want children to see us as a partner in the community and someone that's here to help them. We want families to know that we're here to help, and we see literacy as a means to contribute and increase our quality of life. The next slide real quick I want to share with you is a pilot program we just started, and it's called Cadets and Kids, and it is a greater initiative right now at the Indiana State College Police Academy, and the hats these children are wearing have the Police Academy logo on them. And this group here is Mrs. Shoemaker's third grade class, the Owls they call themselves. There's 11 of them, or excuse me, 16 of them. Our Exchange Club purchased those hats, and we call them their thinking caps. And they have a relationship with this recruit class, LE 150. Their academic schedule parallels one another. They know each other's test dates. They support each other in their exams and so forth, and send videos to encourage one another. They send gifts to each other. And ultimately, this group is modeling themselves after their recruits. Their motto is 11 in, 11 out, together we will fight it out. These kids are now 16 in, 16 out, together we will fight it out. And so it's a tremendous relationship, and one that's going to benefit the recruits as well in their career in law enforcement. So that's all I've got for you, and there's more to come.
The pictures here, I just wanted you to see our, if you haven't seen the Moonshot reading rocket, that's our bus with the yellow rocket on top in the lower left, and the bookmobile is also on here. Fellsmere has been so wonderful about inviting the Moonshot into the community and about making themselves a Moonshot community. And these vehicles are really seen as a symbol of literacy. We're using them. I've invited Pastor Annie Mae Brown here to join us. Pastor Brown runs a preschool in Fellsmere. She is also president of FACT, and I don't know she'll ever be able to not be because she does such a fabulous job there. And also one of those heroes too. Whenever our Meredith's group was talking about the first 1,000 days of life, whenever I'm in Fellsmere and I get to visit Pastor Brown's preschool, or when we have the rocket there or the bookmobile, you're raising readers. Her kids are this big. I mean, they come out to us, all they love to read. The first thing they do is they hand you a book. They want to sit down and be read to. They love reading. It's beautiful, and I just, it's a model that we can share, and it's great to see. So I just wanted to ask Pastor Brown if she could just tell us a little bit about how she's embraced the Moonshot moment.
Oh, bless you. I would just like to say that I heard Ms. Miller say it's been a long time coming. For me, it's been 56 years coming. And I would just like to say that the Moonshot bookmobile, when the children look out the window towards Grant Park and see the bookmobile, they know that they're going to receive books to read. And there's just not enough books for the children that we have. They love to read. And with the Moonshot Moment rocket bus, Miss Bridget, today is Thursday. Now they don't know that today is Thursday, but they know that Miss Bridget is coming. Beady beady bum bum, they're waiting for Miss Bridget. And I would just like to say that our school is a perfect example that our children can. With the right resources, our children can. Being in the community that we're in, we looked out the window and we saw negative things until Chief TOUCHBERRY came. Now our children can look out the window and they can see the bookmobile, they can see the rocket bus. When they come in, our children are excited. We have 3-year-olds that are already kindergarten ready. Our 2-year-olds, right on the verge of being kindergarten ready. So I can sit in front of you today and say that our children can, if given the opportunity and the right resources, like the learning allowance, our children can. Not one child that is coming to our facility can't. Whether there's a disability, whether they're at risk, they're all treated the same. We have the same expectation for all of our children, so we know that our children can.
I want to show, if you look at this picture in the upper corner, so one of the things we talk about with the Moonshot moment is we want children to be able to be problem solvers. We had the books were too big and too heavy to carry, so these adorable little 3-year-olds thought of, let's take a bag, and this becomes our backpack. So, you know, they solved the problem. We had bags in the bookmobile, and that became their backpack to get the books back to the class. Another thing that's happening in Fellsmere is Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative is doing a lot of great outreach work. So I've asked Dr. Torres if she'd stay on the stage with us and just share a little bit about what's happening in Fellsmere with KRC.
Marie, let me just say that first, I'm so privileged and honored to be working with Chief TOUCHBERRY and Pastor Brown, and they have really welcomed me into FACT. It's really a very unique experience to be part of FACT and to see the kind of energy that the community has. Kindergarten Readiness Collaborative has been implementing an outreach family specialist initiative very successfully for the last couple of years, and in the community we have an outreach specialist. Her name is Maria Pantoja. She is very well respected in the community because she's born and raised in Fellsmere. We also have an outreach specialist in Gifford as well. And through Maria Pantoja, I say that I shadow her and I'm learning through her. But there's a special story that I'd like to share with you this morning, and it's the story of Aurelis. Aurelis is a child that I met 4 months ago. We have been working with her for about a year or so and with her family. Aurelis presented speech and language difficulties that were really impacting her behavior and were also creating social emotional concerns. And having been an elementary school principal, there are a lot of things that you can see in little ones and you observe and you become concerned. And there are a lot of tools that we'd also want to give mom. Frankly, the first time I visited the home, I realized there's a lot of things happening and we need to get this family some support. That's the challenge. The solution was having a conversation with local partners in the school district and making sure that Aurelis got the speech and language services that she needed and that she's in a structured school environment, which is really what she needed, socialization skills and to be able to work with peers, and we have successfully done that. She is now in a pre-K program. She is getting speech and language services, and we have empowered mom through our collaboration with partners to understand what the process is, how she can access those services for her child, and how she can continue to be an advocate for her child. What I'd like to say is that Aurelis' story should be the story of every single child in Indian River County, and that's something that we continue to do through partnership with MCAN and through your ongoing support. That is our commitment. We are very privileged and honored through our collaboration with the Learning Alliance to have received a $20,000 grant through the Poses Foundation this past December to develop now a family engagement model, something that's evidence-based in Fellsmere. And this is something that I'm very excited about because this will be able to provide families more of the tools and resources you've heard about this morning that they need to empower themselves and help their children. So this is a very unique opportunity, something that we could not have done through the collaboration with the Learning Alliance and through MCAN. So thank you.
Great. We've got 2 more stories. One is a fabulous integrated story from the museum, the school district, and the Learning Alliance. So I'd like Shanti, Debbie Dillon, and our superintendent, Mark Rendell, to come up and share that.
Hi, everyone. I'm SHANTI Sanchez. I'm the Museums, School, and Community Programs Manager. And school programs at the Vero Beach Museum of Art resulted in the busiest and most exciting fall in museum history and brought an abundant harvest of seeds planted and nurtured over the past 4 years since the Learning Alliance and Moonshot Community Partnership began for us. The inspiration for this success was the Maurice Sendak Where the Wild Things Are exhibition. During that time, 33 school visits brought over 2,400 visitors to the museum. Our docent volunteers delighted in leading groups through the Sendak original illustrations, murals, and quotes from the text, an interactive wild rumpus room filled with books, puppets, puzzles, and more, and Max's boat available for photo opportunities in the gallery. Museum educators visited the classrooms prior to each school's visit to prepare students and connect with teachers about the experience. Many were doing classroom units using the book, Where the Wild Things Are. In contrast to formal classroom learning, the learning that takes place in settings like museums is informal. It's often self-directed and filled with opportunities to explore and create in response to the environment, where many students have never been. Students spent time in the museum art school studios, engaged in making a variety of art projects. You see Dr. Rendell helping a student there. That was a very special day. Citrus student, I believe. Inspired by Sendak's work and the story itself. Completed art projects were collected and displayed in the atrium at the museum as a way to make learning visible to the entire community. And they shared it with a record crowd of 2,900 visitors in 3 hours on Sunday, December 3rd at a free family festival. If we change a slide, this is really the exciting part. More than 50 performances from Team Wild Things, also known as the Learning Alliance's Bridget Lyons, yes, the same Miss Bridget, who goes to Fellsmere every week, Moonshot rocket artist Kat Faust, and wife of Glendale principal Adam Faust, and former Rosewood principal Debbie Dillon, starring as Max, provided literacy connections, sharing with students a word wall of vocabulary with movement activities before donning Kat's amazing costumes to bring the wild things to life with an interactive performance of the text that included a wild rumpus dance and spirited chants of King Max, King Max, which we all did. I was going to ask you to do it, we don't have time. Okay, let's switch slides again. The team was honored with footprints in the lobby. This is the actual movement activity in action. Let's go to the next slide. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. This was one of the many, many groups that came through and got to experience this scaffolded learning in the galleries, the studios, and with this performance and literacy connection. Next slide. So they got honored with these footprints in the museum lobby. Which they really should have gotten stars on Broadway, for the rave reviews and deep gratitude from teachers, chaperones, parents, and students alike. It was an honor to have Dr. Rendell, school and district administrators, and Moonshot community partners come to check out what all the excitement was about. And if you missed it, we're going to show you a very quick video right here.
Look at those sausage toes. We love you so. So much fun. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Well, that's how we all feel. The museum staff was really sorry to see Team Wild Things go when the exhibition closed and experience the truth of the words of the wild things. We'll eat you up. We love you so. And personally speaking, I just want to say that this fall I witnessed powerful evidence that the Moonshot vision for a committed literacy community is indeed evolving into a reality, and that the magic of helping children experience words and stories with pictures, visual and performing arts, through collaborations with local artists and of cultural centers such as the museum, is a potent resource within that reality. I'm humbled and honored to deliver this story today, along with infinite gratitude for all who helped make it possible. So thank you. And with that, Big Matt.
Okay. I also failed at retirement. It was 3 years this December 14th, but so fortunate to have been a part of not only the initiation of all of this and the creation of it. And I will tell you, when they asked me to do Where the Wild Things Were and be involved in that, I thought I was just going to read the story, Where the Wild Things Are. And this field trip involved into something that is absolutely amazing. Having been in education over 30-some years, and having, planned field trips and seen many, gone on many, this one was beyond unbelievable. Because of the impact that it had on the students, and being able to deliver and bring literacy to life for the children and see the expressions on their face, to have students who have never been across the bridge, who have never been in a museum, who have never really seen a live performance, and to have had the museum allow us to be so close in contact with them that we actually could feel the connection between the characters that we were and the children's involvement in the story. It was the most meaningful and fun thing I've done in my retirement, and I'm forever grateful for the Learning Alliance for allowing me to continue to be a part of this initiative. It is one that I have seen grown and develop, and it has made an amazing impact. When I go into the schools today, because I do an after-school program at Beachland, and I'm still involved with involving in the school in many of the schools, the kids, no matter, and I was at Rosewood for 16 years, and but at every other school, which I really wasn't much a part of it, they'll go in and they look at me and they go, "Hey, I think you were King Max." And I go, "How do you know that?" They go, "I remember your voice." And I go, "Okay." So the other thing that was really powerful, I think, and I want to mention this, we were trying to figure out how we were going to know as the characters and what impact it had on the children. So after our first performance, we talked about it, and then when I went home, I wrote a letter as Max to the kids. And I wanted them to respond to Max as to, can you tell me, oh, I saw you in the wild forest, and how did you, what did you think, and what did you feel, and it was amazing, the responses that we got back. One of them said, I asked them, if you were king, what would you do? And one said, well, dear Max, I loved going to the Wild Things for performance. And if I were King Max, I would buy everybody a slushie. That's good. Another thing, and these are really cute stories. So I walked every time after the performance, I would walk at Riverside. And they would go have lunch after they had their field trip right by the volleyball court. And I was walking towards them, and I could see the buses, and I could see the kids getting on the bus. And as they were getting on the bus, they were all chanting, "King Max!" King Max! So the impact that this field trip had on all of the kids was phenomenal. Appreciate everything. I appreciate, and I'm so thankful for all of the community support that we get to do these kinds of things and bring literacy to life for them. And thank you so much, because I was just delighted to do it. Thank you.
I'm not sure that I can really follow that with anything. I was not King Max, but I did go and experience what the kids experienced. And in my 25 plus years of education, I have never, ever seen students presented with such an exciting and engaging educational experience. We've been to field trips before, we've been to the museum before, but this was different. The students received education about what they were going to experience before they went. They were reading the book, there were some activities done, and then they went and experienced all of that there at the museum. All kinds of engaging activities, not just the play, not just the living vocabulary, but arts and craft, and they got to go through the museum and experience that, and then follow-up activities back at their building. The reason it was different is because there was a partnership between the school district and the museum in a way that's never been before. And that relationship was brokered by the Learning Alliance, by the people that you saw in the video. And so we are just extremely grateful for this new level of partnership with the museum, brokered really by the Learning Alliance. And we hope to do this again every year for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last story is Fran McDonough, who is going to talk about Moonshot Academy, the extended learning experiences that we provide to.
Good morning, everybody. Barbara had asked me to speak a little bit about the Moonshot Academy and my journey to get where I am right now. We're managing the Moonshot Academy after school programs. And as I started thinking about it, I said it was really fueled by my love of our students, having a growth mindset, and a willingness to say yes. So 8 years ago, I was approached by our literacy coach to get involved with the Sunday System Intervention Program. So I received training through the Learning Alliance. That morphed into a year-long program of really understanding the structure of the English language. From there, I was invited to become part of a Master Coach program. I said yes. There, they gave us not only the foundational knowledge, but also the social-emotional skills that we needed to help our students that were coming to us in trauma. And then applied strategies for helping the children really do something with what they're learning. From there, I was invited to become part of Collaborative Classrooms. I said yes. This was an opportunity to work with colleagues across the district that I was able to learn and grow with. And again, more professional development to strengthen my skills. From there, there was a position open at the Gifford Youth Achievement Center for a tutor in their Moonshot Academy. So I said yes. I worked with a small group of kindergartners. And I found out when I went in there that one of the students was a Beachland student. So I approached his teacher and said, hey, I've got Johnny in my group. Is there anything specifically you want me to work on him with? And she said, oh, that poor baby. Anything that you can do is going to help because he just doesn't know anything. Well, the Moonshot Academy was an opportunity for me to work with these 5 kindergartners in a small group setting and use a lot of the strategies I was learning in professional development with them there. So kind of testing time for me and learning time for them. Well, what I found with Johnny was that he did know a lot. What the problem was is that his teacher didn't have the strategies to unlock what he knew. So a quick story about him, we had challenged his little group with retelling a story. So that we had read out loud to them. And not just retelling, but they were going to act out this story, but retelling in their own words. So all of a sudden, he just becomes the leader of this group. And he's telling the other students, well, this is how we're going to act out this part, and this is what we're going to do here. And he's writing dialogue. You were scribing dialogue for a kindergartner, but he was just so excited and invigorated to be able to show us what he knew. And from there, we had him reading sight words, and he's tapping and sounding out 3 sound words. It was just incredible. And I'd go back to his teacher and say, listen, you have to get involved with what I'm doing because he really knows a lot. You just need the strategies to unlock his potential. From there, I had the opportunity to start a Moonshot Academy at Beachland, which is the school that I was teaching at. And of course, I said yes, jumped on it. It was unbelievable for our students. We were able to serve about 60 students the first year, saw tremendous gains with them. So moving on from there, I was approached by the Learning Alliance to come aboard with them full-time, to be involved with professional development and to manage all of the Moonshot Academy after-school programs. This was a tough one for me because I felt like I really loved being in the classroom with students. Like I really didn't know if I was ready to leave, but I started thinking about all of those teachers that don't have these strategies. And this was an opportunity for me to get them involved with what I'm doing, and so I can have an impact on more of our students in our district. So I just want to thank all of you for continuing to say yes and support us in our journey. Thank you.
right, so Fran McDonough is that beautiful educator. She is this new class of educator who has the knowledge and skills to teach even the kids who are breaking down what to do. So thank you for your inspiration and for helping other people get there. All right, I just want to conclude with Ray, if you'd come up. Thank you, everybody.
Well, hopefully you found today's presentations inspiring. They really are inspiring. I was struck by Pastor Brown's comments. Kids can, given the right circumstances, kids can. There's no reason they can't. And it's just an absolute shame that we allow in this country 65% of our kids to not be able to read by the end of the 3rd grade. That's a crying shame, because we know that kids can. And thanks to many of you in this community who donate, care, become involved, we are changing this community. You saw those statistics that Dr. Rendell put up there. We'll be talking more about what's going on in the school district on March 1st, but then also what our plans are to continue to accelerate this growth that you're seeing. We are achieving success. We are doing things. And it's just so important that we wake this nation up, that we have got to stop playing with education and get serious about doing something about it. We've got to realize that kids can when given the right opportunity. This past week, on Wednesday, Thomas Friedman had an incredible article in there, in the editorial page, about something called quantum computing. Probably many of you don't even have heard of this thing. But guess what? Binary computers that you all currently know and love are probably in another 20 years going to be dead and gone and be replaced by something called quantum computers. Binary computers work on ones and zeros. Quantum computers can work on a multiplicity of states. They have the potential to be 100,000 times faster than the current computers. Now just think about that. Just think about the impact that the current binary computers are having upon driverless cars, logistics, online shopping. It's massively changed our world. The binary computer. Now imagine accelerating that 100,000 times faster. 50 years from now is going to be a very different world. And it will have an impact on everybody's life, and especially people that need to work. And we have got to make sure that we have 90% of our kids being creative, being lifelong learners, and being able to handle the changes that are going to become. In the past, when the automobile came out, we had almost 50 years to adapt to cars. Anymore, we have less than decades to adapt to these technology changes. And as a result, we need kids who can learn continuously throughout their lives. That's the only way they're going to succeed. So yes, we've got to be serious as a nation. We've got to wake up this nation. What's going on here in Indian River County can be a model for this nation. And thanks to all of your help and support, we are making changes here. So I just want to thank you all for being here, for coming in out of the cold and spending your time with us here today. I appreciate it. I think it was a very good program. We look forward to having another one on March 1st. It's unbelievable. We always manage to hit it right on the time, right? So the point is, we can open it up for any questions. If anybody has any questions, we can take those. Anybody have any questions? Wow. Okay, thank you so much for being here. We hope it was a worthwhile experience for you. Thank you very much.